All right, hello everyone. We let's do the Pirki Avot. Pirki Avot. The fact is, I already did this, but I forgot to turn on the microphone. So we have a picture of me with my lips moving and etc., but no explanations. That's not really not that interesting. So let's have a look at Pirki Avot. Also not very instructive. Pirki Avot, the chapters of the fathers. We're now on the fourth chapter. We did this a little bit. We made progress last time, but let's just go over it because the messages are very beautiful and they're very practical. Benzoma. Benzoma, Shimon Benzoma. Next one is Rabbi Shimon Ben Azai. Benzoma and Ben Azai, they both were tremendously holy people. Neither one of them got married. They also occupied themselves in Kabbalah and the mystical aspects of Hasidut, of Judaism, of the Torah. And that proved to be their undoing because it says that they went together with another Jew by the name of Elisha ben Avua and Rabbi Akiva, and they went into the secrets of the Torah. Their souls witnessed amazing levels of purity of God, and only Rabbi Akiva went in peace, and he came out in peace. And the others, one went crazy, that was this Benzoma, and one died, that was Ben Azai, and one became a total apostate, that was Elisha ben Avua. Rabbi Akiva came out okay. But before that, they were tremendously genius people, and we can learn a lot from them. The fact is, you can learn also from crazy people also. I mean, just because a person is crazy, or even if he's stupid, doesn't mean that he can't say proper things. You can learn from everybody, and we'll even see that now. Let's see. Ezu Chacham, who is a wise man? What's the definition of a wise person? A wise person is someone who can learn from everyone. Not just that you learn from books or you learn from people that are smarter than you. Everyone has something to teach you. Like it says, Mikol Malamda Yiskalti, it's a sentence in Psalms. From all of those who taught me, I became wise. Because I was speaking in your Torah. And the Torah tells us that God creates everybody and everything has a message. That's why God creates it with speech. Ezu Gibor, who is a powerful person, right? What do you think? A powerful person is someone who beats everybody else, right? It says a kovish esetzo, somebody who can defeat himself. Like it says, tover rechapayim migibor. It's better a person that has patience than someone who is powerful physically. Umoshel barucho, and someone who can control his urges, milokade ear, than conquering a city. How often do we see that people can conquer, but they can't conquer themselves? Ezu Hashir, who's a rich person? Someone who is happy with what he has, like it says, if you rejoice with your own toil of your own hands, then you'll be happy and it'll be good for you. What does it mean, happy and it'll be good for you? Happy you will be in this world, and it will be good for you in the world to come. So we see all these three. There's one more. Are the opposite of what we think. Usually we think, who is a wise person? Someone who's wiser than everybody else. Who's giver? Someone that can beat everybody else. Who is rich? Somebody who's got more money than everybody else. And here he says it's not so. A wise person is someone who's lower than everybody else. He realizes yet what he's got something to learn. Everyone is his teacher. Who is a powerful person? Someone who is weaker than everybody else. What do you mean weaker than everybody else? He does not have a desire to beat everybody. He realizes his big enemy is his own desire to rule. He defeats his own Yetzer. That's why people have no patience and things like that, because they want, how do you say, they want it all and they want it now. Let me just see if I turn this on. Yeah. Who is a rich person? You might think a person that's got more, zeros in his bank account. He says, no, that you're happy with whatever you have. If you have $1 billion, that's wonderful. But if you're not happy with what you've got, then you won't be happy with what you get. And finally, the last one, who is a person that is honor, that you give honor to, respect, someone who respects everyone else, right? If you give respect to everyone else, you feel that you are in some way inferior to everybody else, at least in one aspect. In other words, you look for the good in everybody else, and you believe that there is good, and you honor everybody, then you are a person who is honored. It doesn't mean that you have to not withhold your good qualities from everybody. Your good qualities, of course, if you're the ways you're better than everyone else, you have to teach everyone else. But the things that you're not, as you discover that by giving honor to everybody, suddenly you discover the best in everyone else. Ben Azai Omer. Ben Azai said, generally speaking, by the way, there's a difference between kavod and love. Love means that you see something good in someone else and you value that thing. Kavod means you don't see anything good in the other person, but you believe that there is some. You believe that everyone has something good, and therefore you sort of step back. Right? Love means you're sort of the boss. You value this other person. You see what, and kavod means that you step back. You don't see any value in the other person, but you believe that there is. Right? You realize that you must be wrong. There has to be. That's called kavod. It works very well in marriage. It works very well in marriage. If you always want to be right, so you'll find out that it's maybe a good formula for discord or even divorce. You insist on being right all the time, so that's the best reason for everything breaking up. You want to be the boss. And main thing is that why should I give in to the other person? Because maybe the other person is right. That's called kavod. Listening to the other person, having respect. Okay, that's the first Mishnah. Let's do the second Mishnah in the 4th chapter of Pirki Avot. We just learned the wisdom of Shimon ben Zoma. Now let's go Shimon ben Azai. Omar, he said, Shimon ben Azai said, Avi Ratz la mitzvah kala, run to even an easy commandment, uboreach mi avera, and run away from even a small sin. Shemitzvah gereres mitzvah, avera gereres avera, because one commandment draws another one, and a sin draws another sin. We learned about that in Chassidut in the morning. Basically, people do things because there's some degree of pleasure in it. Not necessarily egotistical pleasure, but nevertheless, it's pleasure. Doing something because it's true is also a type of pleasure. Being honest, right? Helping others. There's a certain pleasure involved in that. Doing what's right, following your conscience. There's a certain degree of pleasure of what do you call it? Of wholesomeness that's involved in doing what's right. On the other hand, doing what you want, and not consider what's right or not, there's also a degree of pleasure in that. Right? You do what you want, and you get pleasure from it. Take drugs, whatever, you steal, lie. You just, you're cruel, whatever, but it feels good. You do what you want, and you feel that you're the boss. So each one of them brings to more of the same kind. Once a person thinks that he's the boss, so he becomes insensitive to God. Here you got the classic cases of these Nazis in the concentration camps, like they killed people all day. The most cruel ways. I mean, it's hard to think about it. Like yesterday, I happened to be looking for something and just flashed up one of these scenes from this. What is it? Schindler's List. I don't like those. I'm sorry, and I'm just telling myself, I don't like books about the Holocaust and all about that. I mean, we've been through that before. The more books about how Hitler succeeded, I don't want to see. I'd rather see how Hitler did not succeed. Anyway, it was just for a fleeting moment. Just, this German guy just arbitrarily just killed somebody, just shot him in the head. It was just so shocking to me. What can I tell you? But if that German guy would find out that person that he shot by accident, it was his father, it was his uncle, right? The people that he herded, among the people that he herded into the gas chambers was his little son, right? Fritzy or something like that. Well, what? I killed my son. I don't believe it. Right? His wife said, bad news. our son was taken by mistake into, concentration camp 5, and he was killed. I said, what? I killed my own son. So he would feel really bad. What happens when a person does sins? He becomes insensitive to good. Becomes insensitive to good. So it's no problem for him to steal. So he steals more. He kills more. He does drugs, does more. It's called in English, they call it addiction. Addiction. A person all of a sudden feels there's no other alternative. He just becomes sucked into, doing what he wants to. And what's wrong with that? He feels that's me, that's my true identity. So it says, don't get started with that. As soon as you get started, you have to run away from something like that. Because if you get started, it says, mitzvah gereris mitzvah, averis gereris mitzvah avera. When a person does something good, he does what God wants. So he puts himself aside and he starts to realize he's got another self. You want to call it the conscience, a good self, a pure self. And you follow that, it becomes conducive. You come, how do you say, sensitive, that you can feel this again, right? Like people go to music school or whatever. The more you work on yourself, the more sensitive you become to it. So you become more sensitive and more in the direction of doing commandments. It says a mitzvah drags another mitzvah. One commandment, one good thing drags another one, and one sin drags another one. Sheschar mitzvah, because what is the reward of the commandments? The reward of the commandments is not going to heaven. And that could also be but that's not the point. The reward of doing what's good is that you did what's good. You were connected to the truth. The reward of the word mitzvah also means connection, savta. The reward of doing a commandment of God is the fact that you connected yourself to God. And the reward of a sin is more sin, right? Which you might think, what's the difference between the two of them? But commandments are eternal. You're connected to something eternal. And sins are something that are not eternal. Whether there's hell or whatever, we certainly believe there is hell. But in any case, the outcome is not going to be a good one for a person who does sin. So run away from sin, that which is opposite what God wants, and embrace commandments, what God does want. Have a good day with Mashiach now.